Texas Short Film Festival. We have the Texas Short Film Festival Fall 2022 event coming up on October the 22nd in San Antonio. We're looking forward to the event. The anticipation is building. And one of those films is from a veteran filmmaker that we've known for a long time, Megan Fitzgerald, who's bringing us Reunion and The Wolf. Both films have award nominations at Texas Short Film Festival. Thank you so much for joining us with your crew here.
Yay. Thank you so much for having us. I really appreciate it. And this is our first time meeting now. So yay, after everything.
Yeah, it's like it's been years, and you're I think it all starts with great writing, and that was the first time judges started taking notice, and we really started taking notice when I remember having like a get together, a little virtual get together with the Oregon Screen Week Horror Film Festival judges, and we're talking about your screenplay, and then like 3 days later, I'm talking to the Austin After Dark Film Festival, and they're like, "So this M.R. Fitzgerald person can write." So good job. You're very talented, and now we even get to meet your team, which is fantastic. So welcome all. Thank you for joining me.
Thank you.
And let's get into it. So let's talk about the award nominations coming up. So The Wolf, we don't have her here today, but Kristin Conrad is nominated for Best Acting Performance. So congrats to Kristin. And The Wolf is nominated for the Best Horror Film Award, a very competitive category at Texas Short Film Festival. So congrats on that. So I'm going to have you kick it off, Megan, with the synopsis of both of these films, because I have a habit of like going to the end and saying too many things. So go for it, Megan.
Oh, thank you. And it's nice that I can finally get the movies up in here. So I made both of these movies one right after the other. So the first one was Reunion, and that one it starts off with a young mother during the night of the apocalypse, and some creepy things are breaking into the house, and she's got to save her baby. So she like saves her baby. She has like a really cool idea. She distracts the creepy people, and then we're like, what happened? And then two professional action people have to go save her from a mad scientist. And I don't mean mad as in crazy. I mean mad as in angry. And we see what happens with them. And then after Reunion wrapped, we made another movie, and that was The Wolf. And The Wolf is about a woman who escaped from a cult when she was younger, but she still goes back and rescues other people, like other young girls who remind her of her younger self. And she finds out that the cult leader died. So she thinks this is her chance to go back and rescue her long-lost friend that she left behind years ago. And that one has less action and more trauma. So yay for me. And the actors and the crew.
All right. Well, let's get into this. We'll start with Reunion first. And I'll stay with you just a little bit longer, Megan. If you can just tell us what inspired you to create this film. Where'd you get your creative inspiration from?
Oh boy, that Reunion was a really long time coming to make. When I'm a millennial, so I grew up with like Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, Terminator 2, Judgment Day, The Matrix, and even like Rainbow Bright. Like, she was fabulous, but she fought off monsters and stuff and saved people, and there was a baby involved, and I was like, oh my gosh. So, growing up with that kind of involved, I always loved action and a little bit of horror involved. So that was always in my back pocket. And then as an undergrad, I even made a movie where there was a fight scene and some people were killing each other in a stop motion. And I was like, yay. But I kind of assumed I'm not in Hollywood. I don't have, millions of dollars at my disposal like Judgment Day did and like Matrix did. So I kind of assumed I was never going to make one. But then when I got to film school, I was presented with some fight scenes where it was like, what if like this one dude fought two other dudes with some pipes? And what if like a lady like fought another lady and pushed her into the wall, and then the other lady like bent her arm back and stuff? And I was like, whoa. And then, but the more I thought about these fight scenes, I could see them. I was like, I can see what they look like. And then I started coming up with the story behind it. Like, who's the guy beating up the other two guys? Like, what's their motivation, as the actors like to ask. And you know what I mean? And then it just kind of blossomed into this weird sci-fi Twilight Zone type of twist, and this family fighting to stay together, like the stuff I watched growing up and everything. So it was a weird, unexpected dream that unexpectedly came true for me.
All right. Well, continuing with the creative vibe of Reunion, I'm going to go to the actors. I'll start with you, Devin. So, what was your role in the film?
So I play Eve in the film. I play the mom that at the time young mom, because I think back we filmed this like 6 years ago. And yeah, I play Eve, and I'm the person you see with the baby at the beginning, right at the beginning of the apocalypse. So,
What attracted you to the role?
to be honest, I really don't see even now like a lot of like really strong, complex female characters. And at the time that we were like shooting this, like I definitely wasn't seeing a lot of that being presented to me. So I feel like Megan just writes really good like women roles that I find interesting and actually like can sort of dig into and I feel connected to. So that was number one.
Okay. Well, same to you, Tim. What was your role?
Well, I was in the Wolf, so
Okay.
I'll
Can defer that
go
one.
into that.
Well, let's talk about the look. So,
Yeah.
Dylan, did you work on Reunion?
Yes.
So you're obviously, the production value is very high on this film, by the way. It looks very good. What was your approach creatively to lighting? And, you know, both of you can get into this, but we'll start with you, Dylan. What were you thinking creatively when you were making this film?
So I took a lot of the creative notes, obviously came primarily from kind of Megan and John working together. But, you know, John and I talked a lot about like, okay, here are the inspirations, the references that Megan is putting forward. You know, what can we add to that? You know, how can we actually do that with the time and resources we have? But then he said it's a big film. There's a lot of locations in that. There were a lot of really big, elaborate lighting setups. Mm-hmm. And so a big part of what we started to realize as we delved into that was the need for speed and like impeccable planning. And I was so proud of the team of grips that I had with me there because, you know, we kind of extensively discussed these things beforehand. And then we could just walk into our next location and they would just immediately start going. I mean, it was amazing working with them and just their focus, their commitment, just sort of knowing what had to happen. And I mean, that made my life a lot easier because that frees me up to deal with all the little problems that come up. And like, I know that they're just taking care of the basics.
Mm-hmm. I'll stay with you on this next question, Dylan. What did you have a learning experience from this?
I think the big thing we learned on that one was just, you know, how crucial that planning goes into and, you know, the flexibility of planning. We had one of the big fight scenes. We showed up to the location and a pipe had burst or something there. So we had to like think up a new location, pack up, move everybody, all the trucks, like everything somewhere completely different that I had never seen, you know, John never seen, Megan hadn't seen. Like we just kind of walked into this place blind based on the recommendation of somebody else on the crew who said we could try here. And, you know, we had such extensive planning for the original location, but we were flexible enough to be able to adapt that to the new location and still kind of like hit the ground running there. And so just learning that is possible, that you don't need to sort of like panic and despair when these things come up, and that you know, if you have that plan in place and you can be flexible about it, you can still make your day. You can get going.
Yep.
All right. We lost Megan for a second.
Megan.
I'll bring her back. Not sure what happened with Megan there, but as soon as I see an image, I'll bring her right back up. I was going to go to you, John, with that same thing. Any learning experiences trying to put this one together?
Yeah, I'd probably have to reiterate most of what Dylan said. We knew the schedule was going to be tight, and not only did we have plenty of dialogue to get through, so the actors needed to have enough time to do what they do with that kind of a scene, but then we had all of the fight choreography and all of these different sequences that once you break a fight down into these sort of requisite parts, you realize, oh, it's just like shooting any other scene, and you go, well, there's a certain amount of coverage that we have to get. They're all, it's like dialogue. Every hit is like another moment, another beat in the story that you got to cover, and it has to be telling the story visually and then getting you into the next piece. So we knew we'd have a ton of shots to get through every single day. So really what it came down to was breaking it down to in all of its individual pieces and just kind of going through and saying, okay, at this point in the scene or at this point in the fight, where does the camera need to be? And we'd mark that and say, okay, we need that shot too. Can that shot be part of this other one? Okay, maybe it can, throw it on the dolly and then it becomes this other one, leads us right to where we need to be. Yeah, I'd say just shooting action sequences in general, you need time on a film shoot and you never have enough time or money. That's just the rule. But this really teaches you the discipline of like making a firm decision about something and then just doing it and then saying, okay, we got it. Let's not even like question it. Let's move on to the next piece because we only have so many hours left in the day. And like Dylan was saying, with the day where we lost the location, it ended up being a blessing in disguise. So I guess the other thing would be like, don't worry until the day is over. Like you still have a chance to fight. And, our location, the second location we got ended up being better for the scene. Like the one we had originally was okay, but it felt like it could be a little better. And then we got this other location, like on the day that we lost the first location, we all showed up and we went, oh, this is way better for a fight. Because there's just like this narrow hallway where we're able to like sort of line everything up in this tight space and made things feel more dangerous. It worked better for the fight choreography. It worked better for the camera, and it was faster. We were able to cover a lot more ground more quickly. So, just never tap out. Just keep moving forward. Something good's going to happen. So, that's what I learned.
And creatively, John, where do you draw your inspiration just for the look of this film? And I know it sounded like a team effort, whereas John, Dylan, Megan, obviously, were trying to make something happen. Were you referencing any films? Or are you trying to create a certain look? Talk to me about the creative approach.
Yeah, the look's kind of interesting because I feel like I can always see the references, at least in my own head, that we might have had going in, but then it looks completely different from those references. So we actually talked a lot about movies like Haywire, the Soderbergh movie. We just loved the way those fights were covered and put together. They were just so swift and like the camera was exactly where it needed to be at every point, and it was just like effortless. So we were trying to do something like that where the fight wasn't too chaotic, but it wasn't too choreographed. It just felt like the camera was just along for the ride, but then it was still telling the emotional story of the characters and how they related to each other in the space. What else did we use it? I mean, we talked a lot about vampire movies and like apocalyptic movies and kind of the tropes that we were sort of trying to avoid or maybe, felt a little played out. So we'd always be looking for something a little different, and then we kind of just like had some fun with the lighting too. Dylan and her crew did too. We were like, okay, let's exaggerate some of this a little bit. Let's try some bolder colors, because I feel like it is a little bit of a cliche to sort of make the world drab and dull in an apocalyptic type film. But, some of the characters end up in these buildings with like emergency lights that are still powered on by like generators and stuff. So it's like, we really wanted the color red to stand out in this movie. And there's a whole fight sequence in a hallway that's lit almost entirely by red light, so.
No, very cool.
Kind of,
I'm sorry to geek out on everybody. I like to hear all the camera stuff. I like to hear what's going on in the background. And we're gonna keep on moving here. Is there, Megan? Is there a specific thing you learned from this film? You know, was it a little bit of film school from you? It was like with Reunion, was it like, okay, we're never doing that again? Like, what, was there a part of that, or you know, anything that could help you on a future shoot? I guess. Do you remember?
Oh, totally. And honestly, like, this makes me appreciate like how good the crew was. I mean, not only in general, like you guys were mentioning, like if technical issues came up, they were swiftly solved. We had a tight schedule, so that just flew on by and we didn't have issues with that. The biggest things I learned were more emotional stuff because like Devin mentioned at the time, like there weren't many people making movies like this where we were. So there was a lot of people like, why is this going on? And why is that going on? And why is the movie about just these women? And why are they fighting when men are usually fighting? Like I got a lot of really weird flack. And the movie wasn't even done yet. You know what I mean? Like I would pitch the movie and why vampires and why horror?
Yeah.
And it got to the point where I was like, am I crazy? Like, am I crazy? And then the crew's like working. I'm like, I'm like in the corner, like, am I crazy? Is this even not going to work? But looking back now, like, I'm so pleased with how everything worked and everything looked seamless. And I watched the movie. I watched it the other day with the audience and no one could tell that we lost a location and found a new, better one. No one could tell that no one could tell that I was struggling with these issues that people were kind of bringing to me out of nowhere. And so I think the thing I learned is like, you know, if your gut, you know, trust your gut, trust your instinct, you know, your instinct isn't wrong for a reason. And you know, I've had to, you know who to listen to and who not to listen to. And that was a hard lesson to learn, but I learned it and it definitely made me grow as a filmmaker. And even the scripts I've written, like I couldn't have written those scripts if I didn't learn that lesson with Reunion. Reunion was the big lesson learner for me of who to listen to, who not to listen to, what kind of questions should I be asking, and what kind of questions are just kind of hanging me up for no reason.
Well, I'm glad you shook off the haters or whatever and just did what you had to do. What's the saying? What's the saying? Opinions are like buttholes or something.
Yeah.
Everybody's got one. Right?
Yes, exactly.
You just got to discard people sometimes, you know. Last question on Reunion, and we'll move on to The Wolf after that. But Devin, now when you saw the final product, I mean, what did you think? Did you achieve what you were trying to achieve? Did you learn something from this experience?
I have the gift of being my own worst critic. So in terms of me in the film, I always see things that like I could do better, or I could have done differently. Maybe is like a better way of phrasing that. But Reunion to this day is my favorite film, having been a part of, and I really enjoyed. I think it was the first time I enjoyed watching a screening of something that I wasn't, and I didn't cringe the whole time. Because working with Megan and working with everyone on set, and getting to like have all the experiences that John and Dylan and Megan already mentioned was really great. So seeing that on screen felt really fulfilling.
All right. Well, let's since we've left Tim out all this time, we're gonna come to you.
Yeah.
We're gonna talk about The Wolf. We're gonna talk about The Wolf, and it's not the same wolf that's in Pulp Fiction. It's another wolf. But a very different wolf. So, or now you're messing with me. You know, now you're messing with my head. But let's talk about your role in this one. Number one, like, why did this appeal to you? And number two, you know, what did you get out of this experience?
Yeah, well, so Megan has a way of swirling you into her own vortex, I would say. And I mean that's a possible way. She just has these questions that she may not know the answer to. And you sit down with coffee with her to get coffee. And then you just go on this rampage and you just bring up all these topics and you answer these questions. You go in all these different directions. And some of the questions she was asking me were like, so what happened? What do you think happened to Jim Jones' son after Jonestown? I don't know. Like, that's an question. You know, so, and then we talked about like how does a man process trauma versus a woman processing trauma? These are huge questions. So when she started asking me these questions, I had collaborated with her before on some film school experiments. It just got me really excited, and she pulled me into the vortex. And so we love movies. We love to ask the big questions like that. And I knew that I wanted to explore those questions and live in those questions for her film. So that's how I got involved with The Wolf. In terms of what the experience was like, it was fantastic. It was the smoothest set ever. There's a lot of things going wrong with it that I didn't know about. But yeah, I mean, and it was about just trusting the process for me. Like, you know, if I feel like doing something, I have other takes. It's fine. And so that's where, you know, the weird like face thing that I do, that happened. I don't even know. And then they used it. And I was like, okay, sweet. So it's one of those things of like trusting the process and trusting Megan and trusting John and trusting Dylan and trusting myself, trusting my co-stars. Just, we've done the work, let's do the work, and then we're done. And just see what happens.
All right. Well, I'll bring it back to you, Megan. Just casting. How did you can talk about both movies, but are you one of those people that just flips through your phone and says, oh, that's a good person for that role? Or did you actually run casting calls?
It's so funny. For a reunion, I ran casting calls, but for The Wolf, I felt like I was at that point in my filmmaking career. I don't know. That I knew who I rolled. So like Tim and Kristin and the other star, Marianne Murray, like I worked with them in a bunch of film school shenanigans, like, you know, projects. We teamed up with the theater division and we always shot little things together, like scenes and stuff. So when I was even just making the idea, I looked through everybody's auditions and I could see like their instincts. And I remember their instincts, like Tim's got certain instincts that I love. Kristin's got certain instincts I love. And I could just see them in this new weird idea that I was having about this cult. So this cult story. So then I was just like, do you want to be in this movie? I was planning for it to be an audition, but I was just like, you know, let's just skip to let's stop dating. Let's get married.
There you go.
Let's just put a ring on it for the actors already. And it's so funny. Like Tim and I like were talking about this the other day where like, Tim was like, I'm so glad you thought of me for this screenplay. And then I was like, I don't think it was a screenplay yet. I think it's just like a vague idea when we started talking about it. And then he was like, are you going to audition? Like, can I audition? And I was just like, do you just want to be in it? Because our conversations about like the Jim Jones sons and everything were just so good. And he just got it. And I've worked with him before, so I already knew I could trust him with this material and I could trust Kristin with this material. So I was just like, let's just do it, you know. And then John and Dylan, same thing. It's like I didn't have to go through DPs. I didn't have to think about who was the perfect match for this because I already trusted them. I trusted like the way that they planned their look and how we worked together technically. So that one was just, it was better to put together than to shoot. The shoot was traumatic as well. But
wow.
It was the best crew to that trauma with.
Well, interesting you say that, and there's a lot of actors out there who are probably like, no wonder I can't get any roles because
I know
directors are just. I'm joking. They
got their.
You get comfortable with people, and you know you start, especially when you're a writer. So I'm sure that when you get comfortable with people, you kind of write around the person a little bit. So I'm going to move on to just the look and feel of The Wolf, and I'm going to go back to Dylan. These films actually look like they're kind of shot by a different production company, to be honest. So good job there, because you created a different environment. But talk about maybe some of the differences and maybe what you were going for in the Wolf and just what the experience was like working on that. Dylan.
So again, John and Megan come up with these reference materials. I think Jesse James, the assassination of Jesse James by the coward Robert Ford was one of their big looks, especially for some of the interior scenes there. But one of the big challenge we have, what we didn't realize until we got to the location, was that that little cabin was not properly wired. So a lot of the issues that we were coming into was like just blowing fuses. And if you looked at everything, it made no sense. Like there was no logic whatsoever to anything electrical that was happening in there. Mm-hmm. And then to make matters more complicated, when our generator was just not functioning properly. So we had a very confusing situation when it came to powering lights. So I would get these notes from, Megan and John's communications over what the shot, lighting adjustments they wanted to need. And then I would turn to my crew and be like, okay, just figure it out. And we start with the logical problem solving, and then it just turned into sort of just try something, just make it work. Just like whatever you need to do, just figure it out. And then we're trying to keep that under wraps because we don't want to cause extra stress, to Tim or anyone else in the cast, or unnecessary anxiety to Megan. Like she doesn't need to know this is happening. We can solve it. So just figuring all that out was a fun challenge to that project.
It doesn't sound fun. It sounds pretty stressful, but I can remember those days. After we get on, I'll tell you some horror stories about some sets I was on because that's a rough situation when stuff starts popping and you don't
we lost the location on the Wolf too.
Yeah, true.
Oh my goodness. All right, John, I'm going to you. What happened?
Okay, so we got one night we were shooting a scene where there's a bit of a handoff between some characters and they're, it's kind of out of the way, out in the middle of nowhere. And we got sort of rained and snowed out by it, and it just kept coming in harder and harder. And eventually, I remember Megan and I we were doing a shot of Kristin in the car, and we just kind of looked at each other. I remember Megan just being like, "Should we just call it?" And I was like, "Yeah," because it was just getting worse and worse. So continuity was out the window, and we didn't want a scene with we didn't want to have to try to figure out how to explain rain and snow suddenly. So luckily, we were able to reschedule that scene on another day, and kind of like Reunion, we ended up finding an even better spot to stage it, and it was better for lighting. It was better for the blocking of the scene. It just looked more appropriate for the scene, I think, and it worked out better. But it was disappointing to have that happen. You got this big scene to shoot at night, and then suddenly you got to scrap it after a couple shots. So.
Wow.
And it was also the very first scene that we shot too. So
oh, that's right. That's right.
There's more towards the middle, so it was not a good starting, or at least to me. And I never I never had a movie a night get scrapped like that before, and this was this movie. So I was just like, this isn't a good sign. But and then the next day, my AD's car got towed. So then she had to go get her car while we were all showing up to set. And then the circuit wasn't working and stuff like that. So this one was a lot more dramatic than Reunion, technically than Reunion. And then plus, since the Wolf was a more emotional, it was more personal for me. There was times where I was emotional, and then people were "Are you okay? Are you mad about the technical stuff going on?" And I'm like, "No, I'm it's the emotions of the story. It's fine, keep going." And then they're like, "Okay." So that was nice. But you know what I mean? We all work together so much already that doesn't shake everybody up. And since this was more, Tim had to lay his heart on the line, Kristin had to lay her heart on the line. I do appreciate that the crew knew how to balance that, take care of themselves, get their jobs done, but also they knew how to just kind of give us all of our space for this more emotional story than say Reunion was.
Okay.
So thank you. Thank you guys.
And Devin, you weren't in this one, right? Were you in
No.
The Wolf?
I'm Reunion.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
No worries.
I didn't have enough roles for Devin. Devin's got rolled out. Think of her for another script. later on.
With that.
Put them both in so they can interview longer.
Yeah,
There you go.
That's
So
true.
There you go.
Devin and Tim are both in the list, the actor list. So hell yeah. Good job.
nice. I love that you have. I'm going to do a quick around the room. I know we're going like over 30 minutes here. I don't want to take up too much of your time, but I do want to go around the room real quick and just see what everybody's working on in the future, what they have coming up next. And it could be with Megan or not with Megan. I'm just kind of like what you have going on personally. We can start with you, Devin.
Okay. Well, first of all, I obviously want to work with Megan again, but right now I do like more voice acting. So right now I'm on a podcast called Venture Forth. It's anywhere you can listen to podcasts. So
Cool. And Tim.
I'm just an auditioning actor in Chicago. So yeah, hitting the grind.
All right, my man. Dylan.
I'm going out on a commercial shoot starting tomorrow for a few days. So got a corporate commercial practice going on. And then we're working on a short film, early stages of pre-production. So
Okay.
coming at some point.
All right, John. Is that your schedule too?
Yeah, pretty much. I mean, these days I work mostly Grip and Electric as a commercial gaffer, and every once in a while get to hop on camera again. But I also work as a colorist, and this year we finally started our own little color correction and finishing studio out of Columbus, and that's keeping me busy. It's been keeping me busy all day today, so that's kind of
All
what I'm
right.
up to.
Good stuff. And Megan, last but not least.
Oh my gosh. Of all the million things I'm doing. My plan is to produce the scripts that have been, in the film festival circuit, Boneyard and People in a Box. I'm slowly raising the funds because I'm not in film school anymore. And I gotta pay everybody now, which is great. And then I'm writing larger features now and larger TV series, and I'm writing a TV series that's loosely based on Reunion. A lot has changed. I watched Reunion the other day, and I was like, wow, the series changed a lot since this short film, which I'm excited about too. So, and I mean, like, and oh yeah, real quick, I know I want to shout out to you guys, but like, I just remembered that Oregon Scream Week was my very first acceptance, very first nomination ever.
wow.
Like, you guys actually kicked it all off. And after all of this stuff, like the drama and the technical stuff and everything, I was just like, I was so drained. I was so just deflated. And then the little like, you're nominated, like, popped up in my email, and I was like, what? Like, really? Like, nah. You know what I mean? And then it all just went uphill from there. You know what I mean? So like, I know I say thank you a lot, but it's like, you really have no idea how much like this means to us, because we've been through so much, like all of us as the crew and everything as well. Like, all the hard work finally paid off, and I love that you're even doing stuff like this and interviewing us and talking to everybody about their experience and their expertise, because I couldn't have made these movies without everybody. You know what I mean?
Sure.
Like, and I'm so proud of these movies because everybody just nailed it. And these movies like are just, they're way better than I could have done by myself. So I'm grateful for that.
Good stuff. Well, we love your work. We didn't, at our festivals, it's so different because we don't have our own stuff in the festival. We don't have our own movies, our own screenplays. We're really just your fans. We just want to know what you're doing. And we don't really check to see if this is your first thing or your 40th thing. And you'd be surprised who we run into. And then sometimes we'll run into people. I remember one guy, he was like, yeah, I submitted a film to you and we didn't get accepted 4 years ago. And you told me some of the problems with it. And so I just wanted to get better and better and better. And here you go. And the guy was like winning Best Picture at Austin Comedy, with a completely different level of a film. So it's good to see growth. It's good to see who we come in contact with. Megan, you're like a film festival circuit legend. So keep doing what you're doing. Keep bringing us these great films. Your whole crew, it just seems like people are passionate about their craft. Creatively, passionate about their craft technically, and everyone looks like they're very excited to work with you again. I can't say that about every director. Sometimes directors are like, they show up at the film festival by themselves, and you're like, dude, what are you doing? You shot this movie 7 miles away from here, and they're like, oh yeah, my crew just didn't want to come. It's like, ooh. But You never know. You never know. But relationships are everything in this business. Sounds like you have a great team. Is there anything that you'd like to add before we go? Megan, anything?
Just thank you to everybody in San Antonio for having us and for nominating us and everything like that too. Like I can't even. I'm so grateful. Oh.
Thank you. Thank you so much for the kind words. It was great to talk to all of you. Sorry I kept you 35 minutes of your day, but I just love doing this. It was a fun interview, and we'll see what happens in San Antonio. I'll try to get some pictures for you of the film on screen, okay?
Oh, thank you. I appreciate that.
So,
thank you.
all right. Well, everybody have a good day. I'm going to get out of here.
All right, thank you.
Thanks, Michael.
Thanks.